Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is a mock draft, and it's not my own, and I'm not contributing this. This is my father Tony's mock draft completely. So it's going to be the worst mock draft. You're going to see the entire draft cycle. He's going to make Mel Kiper look like a genius, and I'm getting punched for saying that. But he is here, and I will be hosting. He'll be the draft expert. So say hello to the draft expert, and say hello,
How's
Tony.
everybody? How's everybody doing?
So how's it feel to be in Mel Kiper shoes for once?
That's hurtful. I'm just gonna say it right now.
Okay, fine. How's it feel to be in Trey Wingo's shoes right now?
One, I won't draft players like that, so we're good.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through 1 through 5 in the picks. I'll answer him quick. I'll ask him quick questions about them, and then we're gonna have a pick overall of a player that caught my eye and probably your guys' eye as well. Where they were certainly slotted in at. So up first, we have Bryce Young going off the board. Why did you prioritize Bryce Young over all the other quarterbacks here for Carolina?
Well, like we had talked about in the draft, if it's going to be what we think people are going to do or what we would do, and I told you it's going to be a little bit of both. A lot of the things are going to be what I'm going to do, but with the general consensus right now saying that he is going to be the first overall pick, I just went him.
So what do you think about being leaked that it kind of feels for certain Bryce Young's a pick when after they made the trade, we all thought it was CJ Stroud?
Well, I like Stroud better anyway, but I think it's just a matter of that. If that's true and they are going to take Bryce Young, it's just who they came up with. So I guess we'll see on draft day, but that's what I did is I took into consideration all the talk from the last couple days.
Okay. With the second overall pick, you have Will Levis. Why did you take Will Levis over the other two quarterbacks? And I want to get to that later. But why him just overall when there are defenders that I know you have liked slotted in here more than a quarterback?
They need a quarterback, no matter what anybody says. And I'm one of these people that thinks that taking a defensive player isn't a bad thing, but they've been quarterback deficient for the last couple of years, and so they need to get on the boat, or else the GM's gone. And so I picked Levis over Stroud, simply because everyone says that Stroud won't go there because of the agent. I think that's complete hogwash, but like I said, I did let that weigh in on my decision.
Okay. Now, third overall, you have the Arizona Cardinals taking Will Anderson. Was there a specific reason you favored Anderson over the other defensive players?
Character. He is a locker room leader. All you hear about is how amazing he is on and off the field. That locker room needs character above probably all else.
Okay. With the fourth overall pick, you have the Colts taking C.J. Stroud. How would you feel if you were the Colts GM coming out with C.J. Stroud on draft day?
Pretty sure I would mic drop and walk off and let somebody else pick the rest of the draft.
Okay. And fifth overall, your Seattle Seahawks, you have them taking Jalen Carter. So are you just pretty much either you're not too concerned with the character issues, the red flags that have been talked about, or do you think the Seahawks locker room is the proper locker room for him to grow up in?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be quite honest. I think that, don't get me wrong, because people died, but he didn't kill them, right? They were being stupid kids, and a lot of young adults have done stupid things like this. It's just magnified because of the position that he's in. And so far as like the pro day workout, I mean, I don't know if anybody has, ever had to deal with a situation like that, but man, his head probably wasn't right. I mean, he is a kid, and you're going in and you're speaking with cops, you're traveling here and there. He just wasn't ready. I mean, I'm not gonna make excuses for him, but I think that going into Seattle with Pete, they got Bobby. Cliff Averill is huge in that defensive line room, even though he's technically, not really there. but they've got such a culture, and he is going to be the guy that is going to have a huge chip on his shoulder, and he is going to intentionally wreck teams flat out because everybody said that, ooh, he's not the guy. And so I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder.
Okay, now my overall question: if you were the GM and you didn't have any ownership issues, like saying you can't draft a guy, if you're the Houston Texans, would you go CJ Stroud or would you go with the defensive player where you make the pick, ownership's not involved, it's your guy?
Oh, I would have taken CJ Stroud.
Okay. Oh, answer that question real quick. Now let's move on to the bottom half of the top 10, and we're kicking out the Detroit Lions, taking Devin Witherspoon. What are your thoughts on Witherspoon as a player, and why did you favor him over Christian Gonzalez, Deontay Banks, or Joey Porter Jr., the other guys that are really highly thought of?
2 words: Dan Campbell. Witherspoon is just nasty, gritty, and that's Dan Campbell.
Okay. Seventh overall, the Las Vegas Raiders take Anthony Richardson. Do you feel like this is a developmental case similar to with what San Francisco saw with Trey Lance sitting behind Jimmy G?
I really do. Garoppolo's contract is basically kind of in place for 2 years, so you can draft Richardson, develop him. You can give him some sub packages, but, it's still going to be Jimmy's team for the foreseeable future. And then, week 4, I guess, when Jimmy gets hurt, I guess you'll have to play him a little bit more. But I just think that given some time to develop, I'm not high on him. I think he's an athlete. I don't think he's going to be the quintessential quarterback that everybody thinks about. Everybody gets too starstruck with, oh, he ran this fast, he jumped this high, he threw this far, and they don't take into account everything else that's on the field. Yeah, he has flashes, but all college players have flashes. That doesn't mean that they're all, worthy of the number 7 overall pick in the draft.
Okay. With the 8th overall pick, you have the Atlanta Falcons taking Tyree Wilson. Do you view this as best player on the board or just scheme fit?
I do it for best player on the board. I really like Tyree Wilson. I think that, putting him on the opposite side, it gives that pass rush, a pretty significant bite. And with picking up Okudah, I don't think that they would take a corner like Gonzalez or Deontay Banks as early now. I don't think it's as big a need.
Okay. The 9th overall pick, you have the Chicago Bears taking Peter Skoronski. Now, I'm pretty sure I heard he was a Green Bay Packers fan growing up. How do you think that's going to sit in Chicago?
He's going to knock somebody on their keister.
Fair enough. With the 10th overall pick, you have the Philadelphia Eagles taking Christian Gonzalez. Do you view this as saving money in the future or just someone who can come in and play now?
I think a little bit of both. Honestly, I think he'll probably be on the field day one, but they have an aging backfield. They're on 1-year deals now, so get in the heir apparent. Let him learn under that. I mean, come on, learning from Big Play Slay. I think it's a pretty good place to be at.
Yep. So I got a couple questions here in the bottom 10. Why did you take a cornerback in Devin Witherspoon over a D-end, edge rush, whatever you want to call him, and Tyree Wilson for the Lions, where you could add more to the front 7 instead of adding more to the secondary, which they did stock up on in free agency?
Yes, they did, but if you go back and you look at all the contracts that they have, they're not long-term contracts, and they got rid of Okudah. So I just personally think that their secondary needed to be bolstered, and as much as I like Tyree, I just think in that defense, that gritty, nasty defense, I think Witherspoon is just going to be an added fit.
Okay. One final question here in the bottom 10, or bottom of the top 10, whatever you want to call it. You took Peter Skoronski over Parish Johnson Jr. Is that because you view Skronsky's versatility a lot higher than Johnson, or is it just because you just overall think he's the best tackle?
Overall, I think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. So, he's got shorter arms, his footwork, his hands, his head, they're all spot on. He may not he may not actually be a tackle at this level. I would give him the opportunity, and if it doesn't work, slide him inside, where he can play guard. Also, we saw measurables where he would make a really good center as well. So I think that for Chicago, who needs players, right? And you take him, who is, like I said, in my opinion, the best offensive lineman in this draft. No matter where you put him, you're going to be solid for years.
Okay. Now let's move on to the next 5 picks. And up first at pick 11, you have Parish Johnson Jr. Is this just the Titans need someone to block, or is this best player on the board?
It's both. They need offensive line help all around, and on the board, he's the best. He's the best tackle. But if you don't view him as a tackle, remember he's played guard as well, and he was good there. So once again, versatile player. He's got heavy hands. They like to run the ball. No brainer.
Okay. The 12th overall pick, you got Lucas Van Ness. Are you drafting him to play the Nick Bosa role in D'Amico Ryan's defense?
Guilty as charged. I don't think anything needs to be said more. He's a physical freak. Bosa's a physical freak. He may not be able to be all of Bosa, but his line versatility, he's gonna be dominating.
With the 13th overall pick, you have the New York Jets taking Broderick Jones. Is this just the worst kept secret in the NFL right now?
Well, I actually have at 13 the New York Rogers taking Broderick Jones.
I was about to say you sent me the wrong draft list if it's a different player. I got concerned for a split second.
No, we are good there. Their O-line needs addressing. He is the best, purest athletic tackle left, in my opinion. So get him and see where he fits, and make sure Aaron Rodgers is happy. Because if you do this trade for Rodgers, you want to keep him upright as much as possible, because you don't want this for just a 1-year deal. You want to make sure that he's there for 2 or 3 years, and the best way to do that is to make sure that the pocket's clean and he's got weapons.
Yep. Do you think this signals they're going to be moving off Mekhi Becton?
I honestly think that Mekhi is too big to play tackle with his legs and everything else. I would love to see what would happen if you moved him into guard. And he's so big. I mean, that would, I think it would be a good fit. He wouldn't have to kick out as much, and let's face it, his knees aren't good for kicking out anymore. So I think slide him into guard and just use him as a road grader, almost, DJ Fluker-ish, if you would, pardon the pun.
Okay. So with the 14th overall pick, you have the New England Patriots taking Deonte Banks. Is this just because he's a corner that can press and play some man coverage?
He's a press man corner. He's got outstanding athletics. I think his play style is everything that Bill Belichick wants, but he's never had that freakish athlete to go with that play style. So I think that this is a marriage made in heaven for Bill.
And with the 15th overall pick, you have the Green Bay Packers taking Dalton Kincaid. As someone who knows how you think of these tight ends, did it pain you to have to take Kincaid over Michael Mayer?
It does. The thing is that I think, Kincaid is probably a better pass catching. I am not as high on him, but he is a better target. He's a bigger weapon. Mayer is going to be more of the consistent move the chains guy, whereas Kincaid can stretch the field. And when he gets the ball in his hands, he can do things with it. And that offense is going to need, honestly, both kinds of players, both for Mayer and Kincaid. But that home run capability, I think maybe better suited for them right now, just because, they're going to need to have some sort of excitement on their team.
Okay, now, to go for my question, a lot of Patriots fans seem to either want an offense tackle or a wide receiver. What would you tell them about going cornerback over wide receiver or tackle?
Well, I mean, look at the division that you're in. All right. You've got Tyreek and Waddle. You've got Diggs, maybe Hopkins. I'm sorry, but
Yikes.
A 320-pound offensive lineman is not going to line up on the opposite side of Hopkins and slow him down. So you need to solidify. And there are some guards and some tackles in the background that can develop. So far as a wide receiver, when has that worked for the Patriots?
When they traded a first-round pick for one? Brandon Cooks has been traded everywhere. Why not that again?
So, I mean, I think defense is more their key. I think it'll be interesting to see just what can happen this year with a bona fide offensive coordinator instead of whatever you want to call that fiasco that they had last year.
I call it the rejects. The rejects on the block. So, we're kicking back off with the 16th overall pick, and you have the newly sold Washington Commanders taking Joey Porter Jr. Any reason you have Porter Jr. going to Washington in particular?
They need cornerback help. He's a good cornerback. As far as I'm concerned right now, he's the best cornerback on the board. He's gritty. Riverboat Ron is gritty. I think he'll fit in that defensive structure pretty well. And like I said, I think he's honestly, it seems like he's been getting a bad rap lately, and I don't know why. So there he is.
Okay. With the 17th overall pick, you had the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Darnell Wright. Where would you play him on their offensive line?
Right tackle.
Then, if you don't mind, what are you going to do with Chuck's Okorafor? I can never pronounce his last name, even though I'm a Steelers fan. What do you do with his contract then? Because you can't get out of it until not this offseason, the following offseason.
Well, here's the thing. It's a competition, right? Best players. He struggled. Maybe
that's an understatement.
Maybe you move him inside and see if he can play guard. I think Wright's just a better tackle option than what they currently have. And especially in the Matt Canada, whatever. I mean, they need a new offensive coordinator more than they need a new tackle, but that's neither here nor there. So, I think that you put Wright there and you play the best players available anywhere else and you see what happens. But just because you've got a bad contract should not in any way be the reason why you don't take a player.
Yeah. I've been outspoken. I don't think they take a tackle unless the rumor is true and they're interested in trading for Parish Johnson. But, yeah. Now, 18th overall pick, you had the Lions taking Jackson Smith and Jigba. Do you not have faith in Jameson Williams, or is it just that you want to run 3 wideout sets more often?
They ran 3 wideout sets a lot last year, right? And so I think that he would be the perfect weapon to go in. They had the best offense in the league last year. They had the best offense in the league last year. I think this makes them even better. And you've already helped your defensive side out, so you bring up the best wide receiver and go there. It really hurts me because, to be quite honest, I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan, and I wanted him to slip till 20, but I just couldn't pass on him there.
Okay. So, with the 19th overall pick, you have the Bucks taking Kalijah Cansey.
Yes.
Is there any particular reason you have him going to the Bucks?
Well, they do need help on their defensive line, uh, and my thought process is you stick him next to the Space Eater in Vita Vea, and you let him wreak havoc. He's a gap penetrator. Vita Vea eats up at least two offensive linemen. You're going to get interior pressure like you've never seen before. So I thought it was pretty much a no-brainer.
That's fair. And to round off this 5 selection, you have the Seattle Seahawks taking Myles Murphy. Are you just doubling down the D line to stop San Francisco?
I am doubling, and if I had extended this out further, I would have been tripling down on the D line. Yes, they need defensive line like nobody's business. Currently, they have 3 defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, on the board. I think the great thing about Murphy is that in early downs, you can play him on the edge. He's a good run stopper. He's a physical freak. We all know how Pete loves physical athletes. And then you can, when you're, on 3rd and long, you can slide him inside when you know it's just going to be a pass rush. And he still gives good run support there, but he also, can develop his pass rush as well.
Okay. So for my question, I want to go back to Kalijah Cansey, and it's really, where do you see, is this like somewhere you see him going? Because it feels like it depends on what side of the fence you're on with him. You either love him or you don't. Kind of where do you sit with him as a player?
Well, I don't think anybody should not love him. I mean, he is a great athlete. He is a solid football player. But you can't compare him to Aaron Donald. I'm sorry. That's the worst tragedy and worst injustice that you could do for him. There aren't very many Aaron Donalds walking the face of the earth, and there won't be. You can't just pick.
Well, there might be one in this class is dominant eventually.
You don't know, but let's not pigeonhole. But just because he went to Pittsburgh, just because he's shorter and he's quick and everything else, you can't say that he's going to be Aaron Donald. I picked him here because he is smaller. You stick him next to an iceberg the size of Vita Vea, and you play on the fact that multiple offensive linemen are going to be attacking Vita Vea, and so he's going to be able to slip through and create some really, really good pressure up the middle.
Okay. Now let's get back to the draft, and with the 21st overall pick, you had the Chargers taking Zay Flowers. Is this eventually a draft pick to move off Keenan Allen, free up some some cap space for Justin Herbert's deal, and just get younger at the position in general?
All of the above. They definitely need somebody other than Mike Jackson. Let's face it. Mike Jackson is
Williams.
I'm sorry, Mike Williams. He is a plotter. He's a workhorse. He just catches the ball, gets hurt, but he's not going to stretch the field, and neither does Keenan Allen. So you get Zay. He can stretch the field, but he can also go across the middle. He could give you some flares. I think he makes their offense universally faster just by adding one player, because wherever you line him up, you're going to have to account for the speed, and that's going to give one-on-ones to everybody else. And I don't know very many DBs that can cover Keenan Allen one-on-one or have been able to.
No. So with the 22nd overall pick, you have the Baltimore Ravens selecting Nolan Smith. Now, I got to ask you, their cornerbacks, to me, as a Steelers fan, and I watched them, seemed like their biggest issue last year. Are you just taking best player on the board, or would you have more concern at the cornerback position at some point in this draft?
Well, like you said, they do need cornerbacks, but with all the cornerbacks that have come off the board already, and where you're at 22, we didn't allow trades in this, so it's not like they could trade down and get a couple extra picks, which they really need to do.
Or trade up.
Or trade up, although you got to find a partner then as well. I just think that Nolan Smith is kind of their kind of player. He's a freakish athlete. He's good against the run, and they do really well about developing pass rush when players are coming in. So I think that that environment would be good for developing a really solid player into what everybody thinks he can be.
Okay. With the 23rd overall pick, you have the Minnesota Vikings taking Brian Branch. Now, the Vikings have two safeties in the back end already. Harrison Smith, who is getting up there in age, and Lewis Seen, who they drafted last year in the first round, but is coming off a bad injury. Is this concern for Seen, or just maybe a potential move off Harrison Smith, or just best player on the board?
A little bit of everything. Best player on the board. Everybody knows that he can play in the nickel position as well. So even this year, if you play him at the nickel, it's better than what you have. And when Harrison can't play anymore, then you have your heir apparent there. Or if he is just that dominant where he's playing, then you draft another safety. But he makes your defense infinitely better. He's a smart player, and he seems to just do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. And he gives you the versatility.
Okay, with the 24th overall pick, you have Felix Anduk Azuma. I apologize if I butchered that name.
Called FAU.
Yeah, see, I'm just going to think of the Owls then. But why do you have him going over some guys like Keon White and BJ Ojolari?
I really, really like FAU. I think that where he played, he flashed. He's big. He's strong. He's fast. I don't know if you know this about Jacksonville, but they definitely like their freakish athletes. And I think that with his burst and with his long arms, I think he would make their defensive line better. So far as why I didn't go Keon White here, and I just don't think he fits their style of play.
Fair. So with the 25th pick, you have the New York Giants, not Giantons. What was I even going there? New York Giants taking Quentin Johnston. I know you have concerns about Johnston at the catch point, but are there other things you're looking at here that he brings to the Giants offense?
I don't have a problem with him at his catch point. I have a problem that he's kind of a one-trick pony. He doesn't do a lot of routes well, and whether that's because it wasn't asked of him, I don't know. Just in watching his tape, he kind of does what he does. He does it well. Here, it's perfect because what do the Giants have? They have 14 small receivers, and so now you get that bigger body that you need for the outside. He's fast. He makes plays after the catch, which they really need. Dable was able to manufacture some passing yards in different ways. I think that Quentin Johnston would add a dynamic that they didn't have last year, and maybe help Daniel Jones develop even more.
Okay. One more question for this overall selection. Why do you have Brian Branch falling down to 23?
Because you can't pick two players in the draft at the same time. I think he's a great player, and he could fit a lot of different places. But there's a lot of needs everywhere across the board, and he's not really all the other DBs that I took thus far. They're pretty much outside DBs, so I picked him here because they need help all over as well. But like I said, I just figured that he was the best DB on the board at the time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say: when we're watching draft together, and Brian and the guy I want, no secret, I want Deonte Banks of the Steelers. If the guy I want's not there and they pass up on Brian Branch, I might be crying. But let's go to the bottom, and we're just going to do the rest of the draft right now, 26 through 31, so I hope you're ready. 26, you have the Dallas Cowboys taking Brian Brzee.
Yes.
Now, I'm just gonna come in here with a question I had for this pick because this caught me off guard immediately. You've been on the Bijan Robinson to Dallas camps for a while now. Why'd you go Brzee?
Uh, because I've watched a couple of their games recently, and you remember uh, the the game against the 49ers, and their defense played really really well, but they got wore down. They got wore down. So all things being equal, I think that Brzee gives them more toughness on the defensive line to where they won't wear down as much because they are honestly a smaller, quicker defensive line. He adds some beef on there, and he can allow their playmakers, to do more. I mean, he, I think that Bijan could have gone literally, 6, 8, 10. The Patriots could have taken him. I think Washington could have taken him. There's a ton of teams, that could have taken him, and in all eventuality might have taken him, but I just felt that they can get a running back later in the draft that can be a day one starter. There's a ton of running back talent in this draft, but there aren't a ton of players like Brzee that can make that impact on the defensive line.
Okay. With the 27th overall pick, you have the Buffalo Bills taking Jack Campbell. Is this really just to replace Edmonds at the linebacker position?
Yep, absolutely.
Now, with the 28th overall pick, you have the Cincinnati Bengals taking Michael Mayer. Now, again, I'm going to ask you about Bijan with the news that just happened with Joe Mixon. If you knew about the story that broke yesterday about him either taking a pay cut or getting cut, would you still take Michael Mayer or would you have taken Bijan? And why did you take Mayer for the Bengals?
That's a good question. In previous mocks, I have had the Bengals taking Bijan. You have cussed me out for that, but
I
I think
listen. It's terrifying as a Steelers fan, but I'm also like, I deal with Nick Chubb. just okay, whatever.
let's face it. If Cincinnati, if their offensive line was fully intact in that game against KC, they're probably in the Super Bowl again. Okay, but their offensive line was a huge problem. Mayer is not only a good tight end, but he is a great blocker. And unfortunately, Hayden Hurst wasn't, right? So I think that he is just a better fit for an overall weapon for them that can help keep Joe Burrow upright as well. And just like for Dallas, there are a ton of running backs in this draft class where they can pick up and and be super effective.
So I'm trying to find your next pick here for the New Orleans Saints. And
Keon White.
yeah, PFF does not like him. Rank 120th. Okay, Keon White here at pick 29. Do you see him lasting this long in the draft? Because I have a hard time seeing it when you go back and watch his film.
He's a guy that literally could probably go anywhere from 15, to
I'd argue pick 14.
Well, it's possible. It's possible. He is a great athlete, a physical freak.
Oh, we have a little internet interruption. I don't know if that's coming across there, but it's on my end. As he said, though, Keon White is someone special. Oh, there we go. You're back. You cut out completely. I went to fill some time.
Talk about that. No, I think that the Saints just need a player like that on the defensive line. Remember, they had a top 10 defense last year without generating sacks. He can help generate sacks. You can put him on the edge. You can put him in the inside. I just think he's a dynamite defensive linemen. I'll be completely 100% honest. I was really trying to decide between White and Miles Murphy. Ultimately, I took Miles Murphy simply because he's a little bit faster, and Pete likes speed. So,
Okay. With the 30th overall pick, you have the Eagles taking Bijan Robinson. Anything other to reason that, but then he's just the best player on the board?
he's the best player on the board, and they lost a couple of the running backs. I understand they brought in Penny, but he Bijan's just different. And you're in the Super Bowl last year. You already picked up a DB. There is depth, you know, at other positions where you can fill later on. So why not just go for the home run hit right now? You're arguably your team is going to be good for a number of years. So use one of the best offensive weapons in this draft to just help push yourself over the top.
Okay. I want to ask this because this seems like a player the Eagles would draft and try and develop. Could you see them take a DeJuan Jones on the offense line and kind of work him up to be the replacement for Lane Johnson, who is over 30, is starting to have more injury issues, and you just lost Andre Dillard at tackle. If you were to get hurt again, you'd have a replacement.
Oh, I totally could see them taking that. I just, as far as I'm concerned, Bijan is a top 5 player in this draft, but it doesn't make sense for any team really, say, in the top 5 to draft him. Seattle, maybe, so far as they were in the playoffs last year and they could use a 1-2 punch that way. But other than that, I just think it's unfair. So it's the position that he plays, but he is a top 5 player in this draft. As far as I'm concerned, he's better than or he will have a better career than 3 of the quarterbacks that were taken in the top 10.
It depends.
It's my opinion.
It depends strictly on running backs. We all know they don't last long in the league. Todd Gurley had an incredible career for as long as it was with the Rams, but eventually slowed down. Running backs are a hard position. So, and I'm not going to click on this guy draft because I do want to go over some other prospects, but with the last pick of the first round, pick 34, you have the Kansas City Chiefs taking B.J. Ojulari.
Just so we're clear, I had him taking B.J. Ojulari at 31, not 34.
Did I say 34?
You did.
He's ranked 34 in my defense.
Okay.
He's 31st, doing whatever. I'm okay if he last pick 32. I want to mind him in the Steelers. Okay, but is there a specific reason you took B.J. Ojulari to the Chiefs?
What does Andy love? Andy loves
fast receivers,
guys, smart guys, defensive guys that that work hard. He was captain of the defense at LSU, wore number 18. He's an Andy Reid guy. They've been getting younger on the defensive line. They did not bring Frank Clark back, so I think he could go anywhere between 20 and 31 in my opinion as well. He's probably not as well thought of as some of the other guys, but just so far as an athlete, I think that he would work.
I think if you watch his 21 film instead of 2022 film, you're like, this dude might be one of the better edges in this class. Like, you could argue he is the 3rd best edge in this class if you watch the 2021 film and Ed Ogeron's defense.
Once again, it just depends upon an edge in what or
a 3-4 depends
3-4 hybrid or 4-3 exactly. So,
but there are some other players I want to talk about, which is why I let this on the screen. Up first, Will McDonald, highly athletic, very fun player to watch. Did you have any things about not having him on the board, or was it just he feels like a 2nd round flyer guy?
He's a guy. He's not good against the run. He is, in my opinion, going to be a pass rush specialist. You're going to bring him in, like how Hassan Reddick started off, whereas he made his name by just getting to the quarterback. But you can run at him, and so I don't think you take him in day one.
Okay. Emmanuel Forbes, someone who has got some really good film, but is concerned due to his size. Did that keep him off your first round?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Jordan Addison, someone who was highly thought of after his 21 campaign with Kenny Pickett, didn't have as great of a 2022 campaign with USC, and arguably a better quarterback, probably not arguably, definitely a better quarterback, Caleb Williams. Do you feel like Addison there was just something about him being the number one option in Pitt that led so many more eyes to him than kind of going to USC where there was more talent around him?
No, I think he's a great wide receiver. I really do. But once again, this is what I would do. And, we're lucky that any wide receivers got taken. because.
No. It would kill you if you didn't take JSN. If JSN was on the board for Seattle, you would be crying if they passed up on JSN.
I absolutely would. I really would.
It would be a repeat of Marquise Lee.
I did have kind of a fanboy crush on him, but no, I think that so many teams need defense, especially defensive help in this draft, and I think that there's a lot of defensive players that are better. To be quite honest, other than the fact that the wide receiver that the Giants need is a bigger bodied wide receiver, I wouldn't take Quentin Johnson in the first round if he wasn't a couple of teams that would fit what he fits what they need, right? Getting this further in the draft, you could have honestly put Jordan Addison with KC, and that could be scary, right? Because he's quick in and out of his breaks. You got to remember last year, he didn't play in as many games because he was hurt. So, his yardage was down, but he played in less games. And so I think that that's kind of a true misnomer. Plus, he was also learning the system, whereas he'd been in Pitt's system for a couple of years. They had that rapport. I just think that there's a ton of players in this draft that can be taken in the bottom half of the first round, and he just didn't make the list today.
Okay, so if you listen to this, I don't think I've shut up about it. Pick 32 is Steelers. Could you see Pittsburgh take him at pick 32 and reuniting him with Kenny Pickett?
I might have before. I think with the addition of Allen Robinson, maybe not. Not that Allen Robinson is a long-term answer, but
too many mouths to feed.
I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
Too many mouths to feed.
Exactly, and they do want to run the ball. So there's only one ball.
Yep. We got a couple more guys here before I let you go. DeJuan Jones, we kind of talked about a bit, but do you just kind of view him as this prospect that if he hits, he's a problem, but his size is a bit of a question?
I absolutely do. He is a big guy. Didn't give up any sacks, this last year, and he went up against really good competition. But you're not going up against really good competition every week in college, whereas in the NFL you are, and you're going up against speed that he's never seen before. So whereas he was able to just be big enough to, not let people get around in college, that doesn't mean it's going to work for him in the NFL, and that doesn't mean it's not going to. But if you look at some of the really, really big offensive linemen that have come out in the past few years, they tend to struggle against, really dominant pass rush. And I think that's where he's going to have a problem. I still think that as a road grader, you put him out there and just let him push the pile. And even if he just falls forward, you're going to get 2 yards.
Yep. Now to go to my heart, my guy in this class, Osiris Torrance. Man, why'd you have him fall out of the first round?
Love him. I absolutely love him. You should know better than anybody how many times I've taken him in my first round mock draft.
Here's the question. Do you love him more than me?
I might. But once again, But once again, he is a specific kind of, guard. He's not going to fit really in Seattle or in, for the Rams or any of these teams that want these really, really uber athletic guards to pull and push the foul. That's not what he is. He would be perfect in Tennessee.
Woohoo! Yeah.
Because if he couldn't make the hole, Henry could just push him and then the hole's made, but he's big enough to make the hole. So he's got good footwork. He's just not super fast laterally, and that's why I say that. But there are going to be places where he is going to be just dominant.
Okay.
He just needs to go to the right team.
Okay, we got two more, and let's do a little quickly because we're running out of time. Drew Sanders. I know you like him. How'd you have fun in the first round?
Teams need linebackers, but with Sanders, as much as I love him, and yes, he's a linebacker, but I actually will foresee him being more of a, 3-4 rush the passer linebacker than say, an interior Mike linebacker. And most teams that are in need a linebacker. There's better edges than Sanders out there right now. So,
okay, and to wrap it up, maybe the guy that could sneak his way in the ball in the first round, but overall just kind of could be used to talk about. Do you have any consideration to put Hendon Hooker in here for a team?
Yeah, I did, but I weigh the fact that he is going to be 27. He's not going to be out by the time he can play.
26.
Well, by the time he's going to be able to play, it'll be a year later. I don't think he's going to hit the field next year.
I'm not talking this season. I'm talking the following season.
He's turning 25.
Yeah, and he'd turn 26 next year.
Yeah, my bad.
We're talking 2024. He'll be 26, I believe.
All right. But anyway, I'm not as high on trading into the back end of the round for that 5th year option. You don't see many teams using it much anymore. For the most part, if the quarterback is good or if a player is good, they're signing him well before that. So I just don't see kicking the can down the road that far. And for the most part, where I would see him going right now, simply because the teams that are drafting early need a quarterback. Most of them need a quarterback now, and he's going to have to wait. Could some of the other teams take a quarterback? I mean, Andy Reid's notorious for drafting a quarterback and developing and then trading for capital. So at 31, could they do that and, train him under Andy Reid, for a couple years and then trade him? Absolutely. But they're going to have to get him on the field to do that. And why do you take Patrick Mahomes off the field?
You blow a team out like the bad Broncos. Well, that's going to wrap us up. Come back next week. We have more stuff that we're going to record this week that's released next week. My mock draft, and I'm not doing any bit of what I think will happen a bit. No. It's my big board, my own personal big board. I am going to burn the internet down in the NFL draft circles. People are going to hate me. It's going to be lovely. So if you want to, come join that. If you want to find us on Twitter, my tag is at Jordan_J_Parish, and his is at Tony in Montana. Find us. You want to talk about this draft, and everyone enjoy it. We got Christmas next Thursday. Have fun.